I'm Sue Dillon, and I served on the park board for 15 years. I was president for 7 during the planning and construction of Central Park.
I'm Judy Hagan, and I have served on the park board a total of 8 years, 3 of those years as president in the 90s, and then was 2-term Clay Township trustee to keep the park effort going.
I wanted to explain about green space because in the summer of 1988, there were 6 woodlands in Carmel that were cut for new housing developments. And we had a newspaper at that time. I think it was a daily newspaper. And somebody wrote a letter to the editor about that. And she put her telephone number. And I called her and she said, well, I'm holding a meeting on July 5th. So I went, was in her apartment, and there were 6 people there. And we all griped and complained. We didn't know each other. And we said, well, it's one thing to gripe, it's another thing to do something about it. So let's meet in a week. And there were 12 of us that time. It had grown, and we were off and running. So the next spring, we wanted to organize the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts to plant street trees, 68 street trees, in front of the high school on Main Street and in front of the Methodist Church on Range Line. That really got awareness as to green space. And then, so we did that every year for the next 21 years before. And finally, in 21 years, we retired because we had parks. We had urban forest, or we had, we had accomplished our goal. So there was an awareness about green space and the value of trees, etc., that overflowed into the sport for parks. So it was a situation just waiting to happen. And so we got together and we got our civic lesson, and we formed the Clay West Information Council. And that went on for how many years? 20 years or so, maybe. And that kept everything west of Meridian Street was farmland, basically, just waiting to be developed. So as it was developed, we informed the neighboring developments how they could voice their opinion effectively at the city council and planning commission. And so Judy and I have been a team for a long time. We send out newsletters.
That's another fun story, because that's how we learned to use a computer. Because remember, I had the Apple computer, the new Apple computer, and you'd write it up, and then you'd come down to my house, because her kids were older. They didn't need babysitting. Mine were small in elementary school. And you'd come down, and we'd type that up and edit it. Jim was the president
of the Clay West
Information Council, and then we were the newsletter editors.
Right? We sent out 500 newsletters.
It was 800.
800 ultimately. 800
that Sue would hand deliver. That's when you could actually still put things in people's mailboxes and not get arrested.
We were a team already.
Yeah. Well, and what we had learned about was planning and zoning.
We learned about planning, zoning, and government,
and how important comprehensive planning was, strategic planning. As you all know. And it was also, the 80s were a time of huge growth in Carmel. Mm-hmm. I mean, just
explosion.
Overnight. When we moved back, it's the 3rd time we had been here. My husband's was with the division of Lilly, and we were going in and out of here. And came back, and there was still nothing here except the subdivisions were starting to roll out. And the traffic had picked up, because we thought Spring Mill was going to be really quiet, like you guys did. And that lasted about 6 months, and we realized the traffic was just picking up every week. So we needed to start paying attention. The Dillons had the local connections, I would say, and did have some understanding, at least from the Noblesville perspective, about how government worked here. Me, I'm a transplant, just like a lot of the other people that came in the 80s. I mean, it was a huge turnover here. It's always been corporate in and out, but in the 80s and 90s, we were all moving every 18 months. I mean,
but I think the community was ripe for parks.
Yeah.
People moved in. I mean, it was an exploding time,
Yes.
and people had come from parks, and they couldn't believe we didn't have
Maybe we
parks.
didn't have any, or planning for
So,
it.
you know, the park movement really had a lot of support. And then with the kids and the seedlings they took home and the scouts, you know, all those parents were, they thought that was just great.
Yeah.
And because they were building our parks. So there never was opposition.
Yeah. It was always good ownership because people felt like they had all been able to contribute. The tree planting thing was really. So when I came on, I had a fabulous board, absolutely fabulous board. The guys that were on that board just backed us to the hilt. They said, if you get a plan, we'll support you. So they get done. We've got our 5 fingers. We know that land acquisition is what we need to do. We need to get the river, we need to get the Monon, and we need to have something in the center and something in the outside thirds. And how that's going to happen, we don't know yet, but we've got our inventory, so we know where some stuff is and where we have holes. And so the first thing the consultants, bless their hearts, want to do is rebrand the department. Yeah, we have exactly at that moment in time 40 acres. 40 acres. Because I don't even think the other stuff had actually been transferred to the park. And these projects are underway because Meadowlark was finished after I came on. I mean, those first 2 were finished. But anyway, I said, there is no way in heck we are going to spend money on rebranding when we have nothing to put a sign on. I mean, we have no place to put a sign. So we ended that, and then we got serious about the 5 fingers. And we went to the township board, laid out the plan to city council, plan commission. I mean, we were everywhere. And said, we just have to go after the land now. If we do not go after the land now, there is going to be no opportunity. And we question.
Well, my biggest accomplishment was Central Park, because during the construction, we had a construction committee. We met every week, every week, and that was exciting. We were really invested. We were making basic decisions every week, and so I guess that's my
well, and
legacy.
You're talking about the actual construction.
I'm talking about the construction.
The success for Central Park was set up by the huge community meetings that
you
organized.
That we had.
Yeah.
Right, because the board took a trip up to Chicago and visited several parks. And it was the planning and the construction. I was present during that time. So that's an opportunity I never envisioned myself having.
Yeah, we've learned a lot.
I'm the housewife.
Accomplishment has been the accreditation and the gold medals. And not just 1 gold medal, 2 gold medals, and every single time you've applied. So that to me says we built the basement really good, and then the succeeding boards have kept that up, and the staff is spectacular. I mean, we have been so fortunate.
Yeah. I invested a lot of time and energy in West Park. So of course, I love Central Park because I was president during the build. I've invested a lot of time in Central Park too. But West Park, Green Space, which was our environmental organization, we planned and planted and funded the prairie maze. We also planted 3 years of Arbor Day trees. I think it was over 400 or 600 Arbor Day trees, organized the scouts to plant those. So we also had a bluebird trail that we monitored. There were 10 stations, and so I spent I have a lot of blood, sweat, and tears invested in West Park.
I think my favorites are the Monon, the White River Trail, and Central Park, because that was probably the thing I was most focused on. But I love them all. very broad. I mean, I think back so fondly with the names of all the people that helped. I mean, everybody would help you anywhere along the line that they could. That was what was so much fun. And what's fun now is if you're standing in line at the grocery store or something and you overhear somebody talking about, I particularly love it when I hear about the Hagan Burke because they don't know me. And I just smile to myself and I think,
That's true.
you know. But the point is you want the next generation to step up and do their part too and to protect the parks and continue to make good decisions and to support the staff. And I think it'll be another great 30 years.
But, you know,